not even sure I should speak after that introduction. Anything I say at this point is really going to be a letdown. Let me first thank all of you for being here. Thank Joel for that wonderful welcome. I think it is very clear, and Joel and I would both agree, we both married up, and our wives are far more accomplished than we are. So, and while the Department of Labor is really my favorite department, I have to say the Department of Transportation is a very close second because it is so great to see so many good friends in the audience. I just want to recognize a couple folks. I grew up in Montgomery County, so it's always very nice to see Kumar Garve here. I now live in Northern Virginia, so it's good to see my friend Marquine here, who are protecting. They're both working hard to espouse progressive values in my home state and my now new adopted state as well. Obviously, thank Joel Cheeling for their wonderful leadership, and then welcome all of you for your support of this amazing organization that does so much to create culture of public service in our country. I'd like to spend a little bit of time today talking about the work that we do at the Department of Labor. And I know that might seem a little bit of an odd topic since many of you come from the business world and you're wondering, what does labor have to do with us? Isn't the Department of Labor always at odds with the things we want to do? And I think that's a misconception that I just wanted to talk a little bit about. I believe the mission that we have at the Department of Labor really is one of the most noble in the federal government, and I say that with all due respect to my folks, my friends in the Department of Transportation. Because at bottom, we at the Department of Labor, we train Americans for the careers of today and tomorrow. Once they get a job, we protect their wages, we ensure that they go to work every day, and they come home safe, and we secure their retirements. And when I think about that mission, it's a mission that rings true to me. I think about my parents who came to this country as immigrants. And the reason they came to this country is because they believed in one of the most enduring values of our country, the concept of an American dream. The idea that in this country, anything is possible if you have a good education, if you're willing to work hard. You can raise a family, you can buy a home, you can send your kids to school, you can save your retirement. And that's what we at the Department of Labor do. We protect the American dream. And it's one of the reasons why my boss, Secretary Tom Perez, another wonderful resident of Montgomery County, often refers to our department as the Department of Opportunity, because we ensure that those doors of opportunity are available to this generation of Americans and all future generations of Americans. And in our work to create opportunity, we've made a great deal of progress over the past 6.5 years. Times are booming now, but you don't have to go too far back to remember the depths of the recessions when the president came into office. We have now had 64 consecutive months of job growth, the longest streak on record. We've created 12.8 million jobs, and the national unemployment rate is 5.3%, which is the lowest it has been since April of 2008. And so while this is certainly great news, we all know that we still have far more work to do. We know that while certain people in our economy have done well, many others have not done as well. And you see this play out right now in the campaign trail. The issue of income inequality, the issue of mobility, is one that you see people in both parties talking about. And so one of the reassuring things, one thing that's reassuring to me is that this issue of creating broad-based economic opportunity, broad-based prosperity, is one that the entire country is focusing on. And it's what we are thinking about at the Department of Labor. And so we understand that we play a critical role in this. First, as I said, our job at the department is to help people find jobs. Now, when I travel around the country, as I do all the time, and talk to employers, they tell me they're ready to grow their businesses, they're ready to hire workers, but they can't find enough skilled workers. And when I travel around the country and I talk to workers, they tell me, I want jobs, but I don't have the skills I need to get those jobs. And the problem is that for far too long in our country, we've had what we often refer to as a train and pray model of workforce development. We train people for jobs, and we pray that they get them. And So we have taken the rather revolutionary step over the last couple of years of saying, hey, why don't we train people for jobs that actually exist? And that's one of the reasons why we have retooled the funding that we give out of the department to try to meet the needs of local employers, to try to recognize what their hiring needs are, to try to recognize where the gaps in workers are to try to get those jobs. But we understand that as we are, and one of the reasons why we work so hard on this is that we understand that we are in a global competition. The United States is in a global competition. And as we work to compete in that global competition, we need to field a full team. We don't need to leave anyone on the sidelines. And one of the things we understand is that United States American workers can compete better than workers in any other country in the world. And we also understand that when our economy grows, when the United States has access to more markets, we all prosper. And nowhere is that more true than in our trade relations with countries in Asia. And that's one of the reasons why the President has asked Congress to give him the authority to conclude the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which will increase our cooperation with countries like Japan, Vietnam, Malaysia. And the countries covered by this new trade agreement have one-half billion consumers who are eager to buy U.S. products. Now, I know the concept of trade is a controversial one within the circles that I operate among labor unions, but I will tell you that I will always bet on U.S. workers to compete against their colleagues in other countries. And if we have lower trade barriers, we have free trade rules, I am confident that our workers will succeed. Not only will our workers succeed, but businesses will succeed as well. And I know that many of you are in operations that export overseas. And with lower trade barriers, you will have a greater ability to sell your products to those countries. So trade is one way that we can help businesses, that we can help the middle class. But if we are truly serious about ensuring that business growth remains strong, if we're truly serious about ensuring that economic opportunity exists for all Americans, we need to move away more broadly from the idea that workers and employers are always at odds with each other. Now, unfortunately, you see that in stories all the time. You hear about labor strife, you hear about unionization efforts, and I'm not here to tell you that workers and employers are not in conflict at times. But that's not the majority of the businesses I talk to. Companies in all industries are realizing that they can do well by doing good. And the Secretary Perez, the President, and I believe that it's a false choice to say that we have to choose between business profits and the well-being of workers, that we have to choose between a culture of innovation and a culture that values the most important asset that any company has, which is its employees. And that's one of the reasons why we at the Department of Labor spend so much time engaging with the business community, to understand their needs, to understand how we can better create this culture of collaboration. And the first thing we need to do is to recognize that the American dream, this wonderful value that drew my parents to the country, that I suspect drew many of you here, that dream is not alive. That if the minimum wage in this country is so low that if you work full-time, you live in poverty. And that's one of the reasons why companies like Disney, The Gap, IKEA, on their own are raising their minimum wage, because they understand what that when their workers do better, they're going to be more productive, that they're going to have higher retention rates. We also need to recognize that the American dream isn't alive for people in our country. Is if a parent risks losing his or her job when they have a sick child and they don't have sick leave at work. And that's one of the reasons why we were so happy when a company like Microsoft decided to require that all of their contractors have paid leave for their employees. And that's one of the reasons why we were so proud when 90% of Fortune 500 companies decided to provide protections against discrimination based on sexual orientation, even though this protection isn't required by federal law. So as I travel around the country, I see tangibly how this collaboration between employers and employees works. I saw this when I was recently in Silicon Valley talking to tech companies. And many of the managers, the hiring managers I spoke to, want to fill these jobs and understand that through coding boot camps, through community college programs, that they could get the trained workforce they need in this country. I saw this recently when I was in Chicago, when I met with a wonderful group called the Chicago Women in Trades. And this is a group that helps women get into traditionally male fields like electricians and bricklayers. And the reason that these women were able to succeed is that they had unions and that they had construction companies that were willing to support them along the way. I saw this 2 weeks ago when I was down at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And for those of you that have followed the space program, you know that there's been a transformation that has happened over the last 5 years as the space shuttle program has wound down. But even though that there was a dislocation of thousands of workers, employers, the workforce community, unions came together and said, you know what, we've got thousands of well-trained scientists. How can we retool the local economy to serve their needs? And if you go down to Cape Canaveral right now, you'll see that the region is booming. So we see this collaboration happening every day across the country, and we need to ensure that we do more about that. But I would also say this, and I say this because this is an Asian American audience, we need to ensure that this collaboration between workers and employers happens in our own community as well. For those of you that saw the New York Times a couple of months ago, there was a very disturbing story about nail salon workers in New York. I see a lot of people nodding. And if you read that series, you saw the horrific stories about Asian immigrant workers, women, who were being exploited by employers, who were working and handling and breathing dangerous chemicals that was causing miscarriages, that were causing serious safety risk to them, often earning no money or even incredibly they had to pay money to their employers to work there. This was a case of Asian American employers exploiting Asian American workers. So we need to have an honest conversation in our own community about the value of collaboration as well. And we need to understand that within our own community, people are being exploited. So we know that there's more that needs to be done in the way of collaboration. And gatherings like this one are an important way to bring together divergent views within our community to focus on some of these important issues. Now, as we work to create an era of collaboration, we also need to continue an atmosphere of openness and inclusivity. And I had an opportunity to see this play out very vividly yesterday. I was in Dayton, Ohio yesterday, and I was with the mayor of Dayton, Nan Whaley, who's a wonderfully young progressive leader. And they started an initiative there called Welcome Dayton. And what Welcome Dayton does is they are openly welcoming immigrant communities into the city of Dayton, Ohio. Now, that's a controversial topic. I mean, it does not take much to flip on cable news and you see the way that immigrants are demagogued often. And what Mayor Whaley has discovered is that, you know what, and all of you know this, immigrants have a great deal to offer to this community. And what's been fascinating about Dayton is if you look at over the last 20 years, the population of native-born citizens has gone down. But the population of the city has stayed exactly the same because it's been counteracted by the number of immigrants moving into the community. And what Dayton has realized and what other communities have realized is that instead of criticizing immigration, instead of criticizing people coming into this country, we should embrace the talents that they have. And it's a wonderful initiative that not only is about economic development, it's about embracing the art, the culture of people coming in. It's about ensuring that the police understand how to be sensitive to the needs of those communities. It's about providing grants to small business owners from immigrant communities. And you know, I heard an amazing story from a woman yesterday. She was a refugee from Jordan. And she landed in Dayton one evening with her husband and 3 children. She was met at the Dayton airport by the Catholic services people who brought her to a home that they had rented for her. And even though she had been trained as a computer programmer in Jordan and actually had taught at the University of Jordan, she could not find a job in the United States. I'm sure the story is familiar to many of you who have come because of limited English skills. So she decided, you know what, I'm going to apply for the lowest job I can find in the computer industry. And she got a job at the University of Dayton as an entry-level computer assistant. Within about 6 months, she was promoted 3 times. She's now a manager. Her son has a scholarship to Ohio State University. She has now created a community to be more welcoming to other refugees. And she told me flat out, this dream, this opportunity that I've had would only be possible in this country. And that story is being replicated in towns all across the country. And so, again, it is the concept of what does it take in this country to ensure greater prosperity for all people. And this is one of the reasons why I love the job that I get to do, because I get to talk to people about how we get everyone off the sidelines, how we ensure that we have a full team. But we all know that we have far more work to do. And we know that even as we celebrate the successes of our community, and to be sure our community on balance is healthier, wealthier, more established than other ethnic groups, we know that we have deep pockets of despair in our community. So we know that we have more and more to do. And this obligation to help others is unique to us as Asian Americans. We speak different languages, we come from different countries, we have different cultures, but it's that same sense of family and community that binds all of us together. And so even as we celebrate our successes, even as organizations like the ILF continue to prosper, it's important for us to all think about how we can do more to give back. And that's one of the reasons why I want to be here, because I think the fellowship program that you all are helping to support is a critical aspect of giving back to our community, is to help ensuring that we prepare for the next generation of public servants. And I love Secretary Mineta, I love Secretary Chow, I love all the wonderful people that have paved the road for me. But I want to make sure that there's a pipeline of future public servants coming down the road, because frankly, we still have challenges to meet not only within our community, but through the broader fabric of American society. But I'm confident that with our collective willpower and with the strengths and talents of the people in this room, that we can help overcome those challenges. So I want to thank each of you for your support of ILF, for the work that you do to create opportunity on behalf of the Asian American community. And I want you to know that we at the Department of Labor, or the Department of Opportunity, are proud to be your partners in this effort. Thank you for having me.